again, everybody. Welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. Big night for Gamecock men's basketball. South Carolina taking on the Kentucky Wildcats in a national TV ball game on ESPN. We got a 9 o'clock tip-off at the Colonial Life Arena. Emerson Phillips with Collyn Taylor to talk about it here on Gamecock Central Radio. Collyn, a big win for the Gamecocks Saturday at Georgia. Carolina did not shoot the ball well. In fact, that's an understatement. Collyn, the Gamecocks shot 27%, and that was the lowest field goal percentage by a winning team in almost 3 years in Division I basketball. But the Gamecocks were real strong on the offensive glass, and they shot the ball well at the foul line. That's how they won the ball game Saturday, Collyn.
Yeah, and if you look back at Frank Martin's teams that have won, they've done those things. They've shot a lot better, but they get to the free throw line and they play defense, and things kind of happen from that. So obviously this team's still kind of trying to figure out what it is, but getting offensive boards and getting the free throw line is something good for this team and something promising if they can just kind of find their stroke offensively.
So the Gamecocks are now 11-6 overall, 2-3 in the SEC, heading into tonight's 9 o'clock tip-off against the Kentucky Wildcats. Collyn, this is the toughest ticket to get in Columbia every year when the Kentucky Wildcats come to town. Late start tonight, but it is a big ball game because Kentucky's 14-3. They're 4-1 in the league. They're tied for second place in the SEC standings with Florida right now and just a half a game behind Auburn. So big game for the Gamecocks tonight, a chance for South Carolina to get back to 500 in league play. And with a really tough stretch of games coming up here in the next week and a half, Collyn, you really feel like the Gamecocks have got to take advantage of some home games. They've got Kentucky tonight, and they've got number 21 ranked Tennessee coming in to the CLA this Saturday.
Yeah, and, looking back at the beginning of the season, you thought this was easily a one-and-one week with Tennessee, not knowing what you're going to get out of them. But they've really impressed a lot of people so far, including myself. They're ranked. So I think if South Carolina can get out of this week 1-1, that'll give this young freshman team a little bit more confidence, kind of knowing, all right, we're putting in the work and it's showing itself on the court. So it's a big, prove your mettle kind of measuring stick game, playing two of the best teams in the SEC this week.
Kentucky has 3 losses on the year. They lost to Kansas, they lost to UCLA, and they lost at Tennessee just 3 games ago. So Kentucky in the middle of a stretch, Collyn, where they're playing 4 out of 5 league games on the road. And John Calipari, heading into the South Carolina game tonight, has talked about what a young team he's got. He's playing a lot of freshmen again this year, and he's asking them to go win some tough games on the road in this critical part of their schedule.
Yeah, and if you look, Kentucky's only playing freshmen and sophomores this year. Usually with Kentucky, they have a lot of those NBA-ready guys, those freshmen and sophomores, but there's always 1 or 2 guys that opt to stay for 3 or 4 years, and this year they just don't have that. They don't have a guy that can produce that's been there for in Coach Cal's system for a while. So that's kind of been where they've struggled, is when they have those freshman moments. But it's Kentucky, and they're always going to have talent. And that's something that South Carolina's really going to combat tonight.
Kentucky coming off a 74-67 win over Vanderbilt. That was in Nashville on Saturday. The ball game was tied at 59, and Kentucky pulled away late and won this game by 7. They got 21 points from Gilgeous-Alexander and 17 from freshman Kevin Knox, and improved to 4-1 in the league and 14-3 overall. Collyn, we talked about Kentucky a little bit last week, and it feels like Kentucky's having a little bit down year. They're not in the top 5 of the nation right now, but they're still ranked 18th, and they're 14-3 overall. Just a dangerous ball club, as always.
Yeah, and when you talk about class in the class of the SEC, it's Kentucky. Has been Kentucky, is Kentucky, and will be Kentucky for the foreseeable future, just because Coach Cal is able to pull in those 5-star recruits, and they got guys that. A lot of them are NBA ready when they come in, and it's a down year in terms of talent, in terms of experience, but they still got guys they can shoot. They still got guys that are freak athletes, which we've come to see from Kentucky. And it's going to be a big test. It always is when they play South Carolina, even at home, because Big Blue Nation always travels for these games.
Emerson Phillips with Collyn Taylor here on Gamecock Central Radio, getting you ready for South Carolina and Kentucky, 9 o'clock tip tonight. The game will be nationally televised. Super Tuesday ball game on ESPN. Joe Tessitore, Sean Farnham, and Laura Rutledge on the call tonight. Collyn, let's talk about the Gamecocks a little bit. 11-6 overall, 2-3 in the SEC. And 2 critical home games this week against Kentucky and Tennessee, a pair of nationally ranked teams. Then the Gamecocks will go to Florida. Florida was ranked in the top 10 in the country earlier in the year, but they've dropped out of the top 25. And then next Saturday, the Gamecocks get 8th-ranked Texas Tech in this SEC Big 12 challenge. So a really tough stretch of games here, 3 really good opponents at home in the next couple of weeks. And, Collyn, the Gamecocks have made a reputation for themselves over the last couple of years, and it's continued into this year as a physical basketball team. And the Gamecocks, I think the national reputation is that Carolina likes to muck it up. They want to create turnovers. They want to force you into shots you don't want to take, and that's the Gamecock recipe for victory. So what are the chances that the Gamecocks are going to be able to impose that will on Kentucky tonight?
That's the key. I mean, they do like to muck it up. I was actually going to say that before you did. And they like to make things, I wouldn't say as ugly as possible, but they don't like their teams getting in any kind of rhythm whatsoever, their opposing team. So if they, can get Kentucky kind of out of their rhythm offensively, and if they can, Kentucky's a really good offensive rebounding team. So if they can crash the boards and make sure that Kentucky doesn't get those second chance points, I think there's a chance, and obviously you have to shoot better than sub 30%. Which, I mean, if you go in there and shoot 28, 29% against Kentucky, you're making it really, really hard on yourself to win. Just because Kentucky is so good, they're going to put up their points. So you got to make sure that, you kind of, I wouldn't say go tit for tat, but, make sure that you put up some points along with them, kind of keep the pressure up, which is how you beat Kentucky in years past.
Amazing what the Gamecocks are doing this year. They shot 27% from the floor and beat Georgia by 7 on Saturday. Again, that was the lowest field goal percentage by a winning team in almost 3 years in Division I basketball. And, Collyn, talking about the Gamecocks' offensive problems this year, it was the lowest field goal percentage by the Gamecocks in Frank Martin's 6 years at the helm of the program. And right now, Collyn, the Gamecocks are ranked 332nd out of 351 Division I basketball teams in field goal percentage. So the Gamecocks, despite the fact that Frank Martin said before the season started this is the best shooting team he's ever had, they have not proven that. They have not demonstrated that to this point in the season. But, again, the Gamecocks have been able to win some games because they play really good defense. They defend the three pretty well. There have been lapses in that good defense at times this year, but by and large, South Carolina still hangs its hat on its defense, and the Gamecocks right now number 17 in the nation in defensive efficiency. So this is Frank Martin basketball, and this is what Chris Silva has called South Carolina basketball.
Yeah, and, a lot of what that comes from is Frank Martin said the team likes to take a lot of bad shots at times, that they kind of rush things in their offensive sets. So if they can kind of, wait, set a couple screens, get open looks at the rim, it's easier said than done, obviously, but if they can do that, then I think shots could start falling for them, and they got to get, Mike Kotsar and Felipe Haase and some of those guys going offensively. Those two had some struggles against Georgia. But if they can get those two going with Chris Silva and then have some guys in the backcourt that can make shots, then I think this team, you'll steadily see that shooting and that, field goal percentage, creep up.
Collyn, we had heard a few days ago that there were a limited number of tickets available, and that's rare for South Carolina, Kentucky in Columbia. Normally this game is sold out, a week or two or more in advance. And I have to assume that it's because Kentucky's not in the top 10 like they normally are, that there are still a limited number of tickets available. But it's only nosebleeds tonight, Collyn. We figure it's going to sell out, and the place is going to be packed to the gills tonight.
Yeah, and it's the good thing about this one is today was syllabus day on campus. So students don't have that much homework. They're getting back on campus and getting settled. So this is a nice little, welcome back gift to the students, a ranked team coming to Colonial Life. So if you're coming, extra cup of coffee around midday to get you through it. I know I'm going to drink one because 9 p.m. is a little past my bedtime. But just, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. It always is with Kentucky, and should be a fun one tonight, I think.
Collyn, for those of us who have not been in college in 25 or more years, tell us, what is syllabus day?
Syllabus day, first day of class, so all the professors hand out their syllabi, and it's kind of the introductory, so there's no real classwork, there's no a lot of anything. So my guess is Colonial Life and 5 Points will be a little bit more electric tonight than in weeks past with the semester not going on.
All right, that's good news. That's great to hear. Gamecock basketball could use some help tonight against this Kentucky Wildcats team. Collyn, final thought here. John Calipari has been ejected twice when the Wildcats have come to Columbia to play. 2 times he's been kicked out of the game at the Colonial Life Arena. So, interesting matchup, South Carolina, Kentucky. Kentucky is the winningest program in the history of college basketball, but the Gamecocks have had some recent success here. that I wouldn't say threatens Kentucky's dominance in the SEC, but it definitely shows that they're a force to be reckoned with in the conference. And when you're South Carolina, you're trying to get to the top of the SEC. Kentucky's the team that you strive for. So what do you think about Calipari? Why does he have a history of being ejected in Columbia?
I think he's as emotional as a lot of his players and a lot of fans are. So I think that, in these kind of atmospheres where, Colonial Life seats 18,000, and it's usually kind of hopping when Kentucky comes in, I think he gets wrapped up in the moment sometimes. And as a coach, that's really not great because you can kind of get too amped up with the officials and get too far onto the court, which, you get teed up and then you're kind of on thin ice after that. And then, couldn't be long before that second ejection. So, or ejection, section technical. So that's something to look forward to or look at tonight and kind of pay attention to.
Collyn, feels like a crossroads game tonight. If Carolina can find a way to beat Kentucky and get this win over a nationally ranked opponent, they've got a lot of momentum going into the Tennessee game, which will also be at home on Saturday. But, the other side of that coin is if they lose, the schedule's extremely difficult in the next couple of weeks, and this season could fall off a cliff, so to speak. So it feels like a really important game tonight.
Yeah, and I think that if they play well and keep it close, even if they don't win, I'm not a fan of moral victories. But it kind of gives the players something to say, we're working hard. We're kind of seeing the fruits of our labor. We beat Georgia on the road, and we hung tough with the top 25 team. So it could give this, freshman-laden team, this newcomer-laden team, kind of a little bit of, I wouldn't say hope, but confidence moving forward in a tough stretch of, games for South Carolina.
Collyn Taylor, we appreciate the report today, and we're looking forward to reading your work on Gamecock Central this week. We'll have plenty of coverage of the South Carolina-Kentucky game, and then a look ahead to Tennessee coming up on Saturday. So a big week here on Gamecock Central. Collyn, thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's Collyn Taylor, our staff writer, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thanks for joining us.